Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi taala wabarakatuh.
Waalaikumsalam warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, thank you, Madam Moderator, for your kind introduction. I have three points to share today. First is basically to introduce who is Lembaga Tabung Haji. Number two is to share a bit about our business model. And the third point is basically to discuss about issues in Hajj financial management. Ladies and gentlemen, Tabung Haji was established in 1962. We are the body that is authorized to deal with Hajj matters in Malaysia. We manage the Hajj quota for the country, and we do license private Hajj operators who are also servicing the Malaysian pilgrims if they so choose, instead of going with Tabung Haji. So what do? We basically mobilize deposits from depositors. The depositors can place their deposit with us. It's behaving like the normal saving account with banks, and they are free to withdraw their money as and when they feel so. And upon the collection of the deposit, we will then invest on their behalf. And the third part of Tabung Haji is basically to provide services to our hujaj. Every year we manage more than 25,000 Malaysian pilgrims, end to end, from education in Malaysia, their travel to the two Holy Lands, accommodation, performance of Hajj, and for us to bring them back safely to Malaysia. At this point of time, we have 9 million depositors, and we have mobilized a fund amounting to approximately 18 billion US dollar. So the deposits that we collect are invested in 4 asset classes: equity, fixed income, property, as well as cash for the purpose of liquidity. And the profit from the investment is used to pay for our operation costs, for the zakat on behalf of our depositors, as well as to provide financial support for the Hajj services that we offer. And the balance of that, we have the ability to provide some return to our depositors. So in a nutshell, we have to balance between three issues. One is to administer the fund in the best interest of depositors. So all our fund belongs to our depositors. Tabung Haji does not have its own capital. So in that sense, we are similar to a bank operating without capital. So that is a very important responsibility. And where we place the investment is also critical, because it has to basically comply with our risk appetite, as well as to provide reasonable returns, so that we can do the three things as I mentioned earlier. On the other hand, we have to provide the Hajj service, and Alhamdulillah, I think Malaysian Hajj services is recognized globally as one of the body that provide excellent services. Our internal assessment from our hujaj also provide the response. I think we have more than 95% satisfaction level, so that is very important. And on top of that, as mentioned by Madam Moderator, a portion of the Hajj cost is supported by Tabung Haji. So it's important for us to balance between the safety of deposit, the return that is generated from our investment, and the various costs that we have to manage. If we can go to the next slide, please. So if you look at the slide I'm sharing with you, we have to balance between the fund administration and the Hajj management part of Tabung Haji. In addition to that, we operate through 120 odd branches around the country, and to mobilize the deposit as well as to provide our Hajj services. So with that respect, one, we have to make sure that we have the critical fund size so that the return from that fund is adequate to enable Tabung Haji to perform its public obligation functions. At the same time, we must be efficient so that we are able to maximize the return to our depositors. So I think these are the three major critical issues that we have to manage at Tabung Haji. Can we go to the next slide, please? So, so how do we connect the dots? How do we basically run an organization? So at the moment, we are focusing on 6 key areas. As I mentioned, fund administration is very important. We need to generate a sustainable return and to ensure that at every point of time, we have asset surplus over liabilities. Because that is basically to ensure the deposit of our depositors are safeguarded. And this is where we need to really define the risk appetite that are willing to take in terms of choosing our investment. I mentioned earlier about our Hajj management. We have to ensure that we continue to provide excellent services and we have to take into consideration development in the Holy Lands in terms of the physical development, the cost pressure, and the need for us to manage the increasing number of pilgrims as the population of Malaysia increases. And I did mention about operation. We have to continue to grow stable deposit to make sure that there's no unnecessary liquidity pressure on Tabung Haji. And at the same time, we are also investing in technology to ensure that we are able to reach our constituents without adding too much cost. And to connect the 3 key pillars that we have in Tabung Haji, the investment in people is very important. As I mentioned, the size of fund that we manage is equivalent to some of the banks in Malaysia, and therefore the kind of skill sets that we need to have in Tabung Haji, particularly in fund management, in Hajj administration, and in operation, similar skill sets that are demanded in the marketplace. So we have to be competitive in terms of talent acquisition, talent development, and talent retention. But at the same time, we are also pushing our people so that they are able to demonstrate the discipline that a Muslim institution require when we manage the trust of our depositors. Hence, the other component that we are focusing on is governance. Because this is a very important part of Tabung Haji. We are managing the trust of our depositors, hence the way we run our business, the way we take risks, the way we manage ourselves in line with the world best practices in terms of governance. The other component that we have in Tabung Haji is what we call the Tabung Haji Group. Over the years, we have investment in certain strategic assets. We own or we control Bank Islam, which is the first Islamic bank in Malaysia. We are also controlling Syarikat Takaful Malaysia, which is the first takaful operator in the country. We do have Tabung Haji Travel, which provide services, especially Umrah. So we have investment in key strategic assets, and whenever you control, you are taking a different kind of risk, and therefore we have to make sure that the way we manage, the way we run those businesses are in line with the principle of Islam. At the same time, it provides a return that we expect to our depositors. My final slide, please. So when it comes to issues in fund management, I think apart from the 3 pillars of operation that I mentioned earlier, I would like to see that we have 3 key issues that we have to manage. For example, in terms of profitability, we have to really balance between the risk appetite that is appropriate for institution and like Tabung Haji with the return that we generate. I'm sure with the kind of fund that we manage at the moment, it can be very tempting for us to look at all opportunities But we have to remember the structure that we have as a fund where the institution itself is not capitalized. We have to be very mindful about the kind of risk that is suitable for tabung haji. The other issue is about whether you want to focus on passive income or you want to have more active income. Of course, active income will provide you with higher return, but together with that will come the investment risk which may work against tabung haji. The other part about profitability is where do we place our money? Of course, being a Malaysian operator, we spend or we invest more in Malaysia, but we also have global exposures in countries like Australia, in UK, and even in Saudi. And we continue to look for opportunities, but at the same time, we are very much aware about the risk that comes together, especially the country risk as well as the currency risk. And of course, whether we continue to be a portfolio player or we control companies like I mentioned earlier, this will be the trade-off that we have to continuously review. On the other side, how we allocate our asset is very important. We have our strategic asset allocation reviewed regularly, normally around a 2-year cycle, because that is where we shape the risk of tabung haji. So having a very robust asset allocation process is important to make sure that we are taking cognizance of market situation, especially now where the return is very low and on certain to a certain extent certain cost has gone up. So in view of that, we have to be very careful, and as I mentioned, we have developed policies such as asset equalization reserve, where certain amount of profit is retained to ensure that there is a buffer in situation where there is a unexpected pressure on our asset value. And of course, we do have a capital strategy to ensure that the risk to our depositors is appropriately managed. The other part of issue that we have is basically on liquidity. As I mentioned, perhaps different from other Hajj organization, the deposit that are placed with us are liquid in nature. Depositors can at any point of time decide to withdraw their money. So a very robust liquidity management framework is very important, and this is also reflected in our asset allocation strategy, because it ensures that there is adequate liquidity whenever there is a demand for withdrawal. And this is important because tabung haji has to maintain the trust and confidence of our depositors. So we are developing new liquidity management tools. We are looking at stress testing and various other tools, including centralized treasury, so that we are able to take opportunity from the market while at the same time ensuring that we are not exposing our depositors to unnecessary risk. So, Madam Moderator, perhaps to conclude, tabung haji is an integrated Hajj management institution. Not only we mobilize deposit, but we invest the money, as well as we are also the Hajj operators. To a certain extent, the transfer of fund and the transfer of cash whenever is needed for the Hajj operation is done seamlessly. This can be something that helps us to provide the excellent Hajj services that we had been providing, but at the same time, it can also be a challenge, because if you cannot pass a certain amount of those costs to depositors, then tabung haji as an institution or our depositors will have to absorb that additional cost. So this is something that is quite important to us, and given the COVID pandemic that is affecting the world globally, it is becoming more challenging for us to maintain a certain targeted return, but at the same time we are very conscious about risk taking, because all the deposits that we mobilize belong to our depositors, and it has to be invested based on that purpose and ensure that whenever they need to go for Hajj, there is money for them to withdraw and ensure they can fulfill their fifth their obligation in the fifth pillar of Islam. So perhaps I stop here and I take question later. Thank you. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi taala wabarakatuh.
Waalaikumsalam warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Thank you very much, Dr. Datuk Ni. Very interesting presentation. And mashallah, Tabung Haji has quite impressive portfolio, well-established business. I'm very interested in the diversification approach that you have done. Very impressive indeed. And the idea of integrated Hajj management may be something, you know, this holistic approach is something that the government of Indonesia would like to look into in future perhaps. And very interesting indeed. You already have 2 questions about your presentation, but those questions will have to wait. We will move to the next speaker first, Datuk. Thank you so much. We'll get back to you, Datuk. And the first one, Datuk Ni, of course, people are interested to know how are you managing the over 100 years of the queue. And the second question, second question will apply to both Datuk Ni and also to Tuan Haji Osman. How do you actually ensure that your investment is within Sharia purview? That how do you ensure that it is Sharia compliant? And have you ever encountered a situation where an investment that is initially Sharia compliant ceased to be one? And how do you go about it? So this question, the second one, will be addressed to both Datuk Ni and Tuan Haji Osman. So perhaps Datuk Ni would like to start first with the first question first, the 100 years queue waiting period.
Okay.
I'll be lucky to live that long.
Well, thank you, Dr. Huria. I think, I mean, I always say that the decision who goes to Mecca is on the invitation of Allah Subhanahu Wa Taala. I think we just manage the process, and there are ways and means where sometimes you can see cases where somebody that just register can be moved forward, maybe because to accompany his sister as mahram. So what we need to do is to ensure that Tabung Haji remain as a sustainable institution, so that we can survive that long years and able to deliver our promise when the time comes. I think the rest, is not within our control, and have to go back to Allah Subhanahu Wa Taala for your turn to go to Mecca. On the next question on whether we have situations where our investment, although initially complies with Sharia principle, but turn the other way. We do have such situations in foreign portfolio. Of course, we do subscribe to certain standards when it comes to Sharia investing, but there are situations where it goes the other way around. And when we have that situation, we have to refer back to our Sharia committee, where they will provide guidance in terms of how we deal with it. Especially in terms of if there were to be any profit from disposal, the dividend that you get during the period where the investment is still kept by you before disposal. So the role of the Sharia committee is very important. They must be market savvy themselves, so that we are able to manage the situation. Beyond that, we are also looking at identifying approaches so that our investment will remain within the Sharia parameter over a long period of time.
Combine the question. It's from Anas and from Pak Benny Wicaksono. It relates to the investment of Tabung Haji in Mecca and Medina. The question from Pak Benny is very much how do you do it and how you measure the performance. What's the approach that you do in doing that? And from Anas is very much he would like to have the information or how large the proportion of your investment in Saudi so far, and how is the return so far? Is it quite good, or whatever is the performance is? And how about the risk level of this investment? How do you find it until now?
Okay,
Yes, yes.
our investment in Saudi has two different objectives. So one is basically, of course, to get return, and the other part is to support our Hajj operation. For example, we do have leases of hotel or right of usage of hotel, where we place our pilgrims in those hotels during the Hajj period. So by having the right of use, then you basically lock your costs over a period of time. So that's one part of it. But on the other side, you still look at whether you have a return or not. And I think the other benefit of that is you have this natural hedge of flow of income that comes from Saudi, so that when you have your recurring annual expenditure in Saudi riyal, you have that natural hedge that helps you to mitigate the currency fluctuation. So we have various metrics when it comes to looking at investment in Saudi, like in other investment in other parts of the world. But most of our investment are basically in Malaysia. So we only go abroad if there are clear opportunities and we understand the risk, we understand the market, and able to connect that to the business of Tabung Haji.
Is there any relaxation or any kind of adjustment to the policy that Tabung Haji has been enforcing with regard to the payment for the registration for the Hajj, for example?
Okay, we are still monitoring the development in Saudi. I'm sure you know that the authorities in Saudi are just dealing with the Umrah part at the moment. So there's a lot of uncertainty around how Haji will be performed, and hence, what would be the new cost structure, what would be the additional cost that we have to pay. For example, if it requires testing before taking a flight, and then on your way back you have to stay in hotel for quarantine. So this will be new things that we have to consider. So for Tabung Haji, it's still too early for us to decide in terms of how much we're going to charge, but we will continue to monitor the development, and of course we try to ensure that whoever that is eligible will be able to go and perform the Hajj. I think as a concluding remark, as I mentioned, all the fund that we manage belongs to the depositors. So we have to professionally manage the institution. And I think we have to adopt all the best practices in terms of governance, best practices in terms of investment, and ensure that we have the discipline to maintain what are expected from us, irrespective of situation out there. And I think this will ensure people are confident with the governance and administration of the institution. And this will, inshallah, help Tabung Haji to remain as a sustainable institution, so that we can leave a stronger Tabung Haji for our future generation.